You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your host who is capable of answering questions in more than 2 syllables. And with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco.
There you go. 2 syllables. You see, the man is so predictable. Someday I'll get him to speak in 3 and the whole world will come to a stop. But that's okay. We don't need Rocco to talk a lot today because we have a special treat. Todd Rogers of Walter P. Moore is back on the podcast. Todd, man, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, man.
Ah, you're crazy.
We need like one of those audience claps, you know?
One of those.
Ooh. Do the Arsenio for you. You'll be all set. So, that's when you know you're old, when you can do the Arsenio, and everybody is like, what is that? Don't worry about it. It was cool in the day. So, for those of you who don't remember, Todd is the BIM manager at Walter P. Moore, and he is also on the board of directors for Augie, and he is the editor for Augie World Magazine, right? You're the editor-in-chief nowadays, right?
That's correct.
Ah, he's the man. And, Todd is always one of my absolute favorite guests because we always know that Todd's going to give us straight answers on anything that we ask him. There's no beating around the bush with Todd, which is awesome. So always makes for a great show. So we do always appreciate you coming on with us. So,
Thank you.
So Todd, why don't you tell everybody, right? I know you've answered this before, but we have different folks listening today. Tell everybody who you are and what you do and what things you focus on over at Walter P. Moore.
So, yeah, like Jim said, I'm the BIM manager over there. Just past my 4-year mark being in there. So I do a lot of BIM for infrastructure, which is fairly new to the industry, as most people know. And it seems we're doing it more and more and more and more and more. So we're doing quite a bit of it here. And that's on top of a lot of visualization I've been doing lately as well. So Sam Lytle out there with Beyond CAD has a really cool program out there now, and we've been working closely together, ironing out some issues and getting new features added and things of that nature, and it's helping my visualization in the office run much smoother. So I'm really enjoying doing that type of work. It's fun, and I'm a civil guy, so I'm not really artistic. So it's neat to see some of the stuff I put out there, even being colorblind as I am.
There you go. Hard for a soul to be artistic when we spend our lives digging in the dirt. It doesn't really. So, just as a quick plug, what's the software that Sam's working with you out there? What are you guys dealing with for the visualizations?
So I have been using Twinmotion. I still use it quite a bit, but Sam Lytle has developed this thing called Beyond CAD and Beyond Typicals, which the Beyond Typicals I got to play with today for a project I'm working on, and it's super cool and super easy to use. It basically you do 3D cross sections, so you can show all your cross sections in 3D, and it gets the point across so much easier than showing them civil 3D cross section, right?
That sounds actually really cool. I'd like to see that. You have to hook us up, and maybe we'll have him on the podcast. You 2 guys come on and show us, or if nothing else, we'll do a video for the website. I definitely want to see that. So, okay,
absolutely
cool. Appreciate that. All right, so today I want to talk about the practical application of new tools into the design build environment, and particularly on the civil side. All right, and how you actually can use those in the real world. So, and I always ask Todd to be here for these, kind of practical application discussions, because I know he's always neck deep in, new rollouts of the tech at his company. And I think it's nice to get more of a practical approach response on how implementation works for a real active company. And if the specific products and processes are worthwhile, I think it gives our listeners an opportunity to hear from somebody who, unlike Rocco and I, isn't actually trying to sell you anything, So let's start out today with a cool new tool for Civil 3D that we talked about on this program in the last few months a couple of times. and it's called the Project Explorer. And Todd, I know you told me that you're using the Project Explorer over at Walter P. Moore. So can you explain to our listeners, right, what is the Project Explorer for? How do you use it, and what first drew your attention to it?
So Project Explorer was developed by a company named 3AM Solutions. And it was very cool back then. Of course, it was not a free utility like it is for us now, but basically, what draws my attention to it is it's what they call modeless, right? So it's a floating dialogue. You can move to any monitor, so it's modeless. You can move it around and still work in the program at the same time without interfering with it or it leaving the screen, as far as draw order per se goes. But what brought my major attention to it was the ability to do things so much quicker that used to take, hours to do, tedious one thing at a time, when now you can do it all in one whack.
Yeah. It's a huge benefit. I'm a huge fan of the brand. I'm a big fan of modeless dialogues in everything. The ability to have your drawing open on one screen and be able to make controls and changes and see them updating in real time and not have to close a dialogue, open a different dialogue, close that dialogue, open a different dialogue. It's to be able to work in both the dialogue and the graphics and the drawing at once is amazing. And Project Explorer does that really, really well. And yeah, I agree with you. The fact that you can do all of these edits and tools and features and modifications, right, all from that one dialog box across multiple items at the same time is amazing.
Yep.
So again, the Project Explorer now, like Todd was saying, it's now part of your standard AEC collection, right, for the 2022 version. Sorry for those of you out there who are using just Civil 3D, it is not part of that purchase. You actually have to have the AEC collection to get the free Project Explorer. And I agree with Todd, right? I think it's a tool with just a lot of potential benefits. And I think it's particularly useful for those of us in the design build world who don't actually, live and work in CAD and BIM on a daily basis, right? I like the concept of using the Project Explorer that you can identify and view and manipulate all of the civil data, right? Pipes and surfaces and networks and everything else under the sun in your civil drawing without having to spend ages and ages learning extensive CAD procedures, right? So, look, don't get me wrong, right? Your design staff still has to create the initial design and they need to be good, solid, well-trained CAD folks. But once that's been done, right, senior staff and management, right, who don't do this on a daily basis, can easily use Project Explorer to go in and review the design, make changes through a real simple and intuitive tabular interface. And I think that can be a huge, huge time and money saver. So I'm a big fan of this program. So, Todd, when you guys implemented the Project Explorer into Walter P. Moore, who were the user audience, I guess, that you had in mind, right? Were you targeting its use for your CAD people, senior engineers, or somebody else entirely, right? And did the people that you expected to use it end up being the primary users for the tool in your company?
So yeah, we did, or I did, focus on, draftsmen, designers, and graduate engineers. So those are the people that I gathered up and trained them on the program. The ones I didn't expect to become the primary users were the engineers. Now, the engineers absolutely love it because, like I said, it's modeless and you can sit and you don't have to flip through this, that, change this and change that, open this, close that. You got it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, intuitive for these engineers because that's what they're looking to do. One thing, one place.
Yeah, and I agree. That's absolutely the best benefit of it. And that's where, like I said, I see that and that's just kind of why I asked the question. That's how I've always seen it going. Like I said, those entry-level design engineers, they're good with CAD. They can get through and they know that, open this, change that, open that, close that. Whereas the engineers are like, I don't even know where to start. And a tool like this just lets them go, I need that pipe. Let me change that pipe. It's very, very easy for them. So Rocco, let's wake you up here. The last time that we talked about Project Explorer on the show, we actually, we talked to some of the folks from Autodesk, and it was actually lagging behind their expectations in terms of adoption and installation. And talking to our clients and working through here, has that changed at all? Or do you still see that there are just a lot of clients who are either passing on or unaware of this tool?
I don't talk to a lot of people who are using it, surprisingly. I think Autodesk has made a lot of great changes to Civil 3D over the past, release or two, and there's some pretty big changes coming up as well. I know I've said this on probably over recent weeks and discussions as well. I just don't think that folks are totally up to date with Civil 3D. I think they're used to just little changes here and there. And now that they're like super, super duper busy, they just don't have the time to even dig into it. We've actually tried, we have a class that we offer on Project Explorer, and we've actually tried to run it twice. And, while all of our other classes, do very well, that particular course, there's not a lot of interest in. So I think they'll get there, but they're a little bit behind in terms of usage.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very surprising. I think Rocco's right that we spent so long being that, forgotten child and not getting any kind of decent update in Civil 3D that now, like I said, over the last year, they've like I said, bought up a lot of smaller companies, a lot of really nice little apps that were add-ons, and they're integrating them, and people just aren't even looking anymore at what's new. They just assume that each update is just like, oh, it works in the new version, move on. And I think that's the stumbling block they're facing right now. So, look, folks, I think, the good thing about Project Explorer is that it's an add-on tool. In other words, it plugs into Civil 3D with a fully separate process, right? And it doesn't really affect anything else in terms of your day-to-day work. So folks who want to use it can, and folks who don't, they can just ignore it. The only folks who need to learn or change anything with this plugin are the ones that you think are really going to benefit from using it. And to my mind, that's a good thing. And it makes it easier to adopt and roll out and add in, rather than, a full update to your base CAD system, so to speak. So, Todd, how did you plan for and roll out Project Explorer in your company? I mean, did you just kind of drop it on a handful of stations, or did you have a planned process and training, and how did it all work out?
Yeah, so I just went ahead and silently put it on everybody's installation, so nobody knew it was there. Because when
sneak attack method.
Yeah, that's right. Because when we initially rolled it out, it was compatible with 2020, and we were on 2020 at the time. However, it wasn't in a place that was visible to most people, right? It was in the add-ins tab.
Yep.
So now they've moved it to the very first tab or the very first panel in the home tab, right? So it's much more visible, and people were like, oh, what is that? So I made sure that it was a hidden agenda, right? So when I did that, I started pushing out, literature about it and videos that were done. The Bartles brothers are great. I'm not leaving Alan Gilbert out by any means, but all three of those guys are great when it comes to new features and how to use tools. But they put it out there. I would, drop a carrot for these guys here and there. Then initially everybody was, wow, how can I use this more in production? So then we set up training, and I trained everybody on it at once.
Nice.
And it worked out great.
Good. You find that everybody's kind of using it on the regular now?
Oh, yeah, daily.
Outstanding. Right. See, so that's what I said. Like I said, as a plugin, you're right, something like Project Explorer, it's an easy rollout item, right? Because it's that encapsulated piece that doesn't impact other tools or processes. You can, like Todd said, drop the carrots and lead people to it when they need it. But that is not always the case with new tools. Sometimes they are process changes rather than just software. And that takes more work and planning. All right. And I want to talk about that in the second half. So what we're going to do is take a quick break here to listen to today's sponsor. But when we get back, I want to talk with Todd about how he's implemented a specific process change at Walter P. Moore. All right. So stand around, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast.
All right, Rocco. So we are sponsoring ourselves yet again today. What is it we want to talk about?
We're going to talk about me today, Jim.
No, no one wants to talk about you. Not even you.
Oh, fine. Let's talk about Zentek Tech Blocks.
Awesome. I like Zentek Tech Blocks. Zentek Tech Blocks are prepaid support hours that let you call on Zentek's experienced technical staff to address all your support questions, problems, help you with workflows and standards, really anything you need on the technology side. We're here to provide the support you need so that your most talented people aren't being dragged into helping everybody else in your company instead of working on the billable jobs that you need them focused on. All right. So Zentek Tech Blocks are available in multiple sizes. We sell them in 5-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour, and 40-hour prepaid support blocks. And if you're interested and you need that sort of help, Rocco, how do they reach out to us?
Yeah, hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net. Give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, Zentek Tech Blocks, the vital support that your people need exactly at the moment that they need it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Todd Rogers from Walter P. Moore again today, who keeps coming back on the show, even though he should really know better by this point, Todd. I mean, you just don't learn, dude.
I like the torque.
There you go. So in this half of the show, I kind of want to talk about process change implementations, right? Instead of just basic software rollouts. And sometimes what we need to change may have a software technical component, but at its heart, it's really a process and a workflow change. And that really means getting people on board with the necessity of that change and ensuring that they understand the new procedures and the implications of not following it. And that may be the hardest type of rollout that there is, right? I mean, one universal truth about us human types, right? We don't like change, right? So Todd, do you approach changes to process differently than you do a software update or a rollout? And what do you see are the key differences there?
Yeah, so I'm one that doesn't mind change at all, because usually when there's a change, there's an improvement, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the hope right there behind it anyway. Sometimes that's not always the case. But when a change does come out, I make sure that I get on top of it and make sure that I'm prepared to roll this out for everyone else, right? So if it doesn't work well for me, I get a couple of more people involved in it. And if it doesn't work well for any of us, we just skip it, right?
There you go.
Yeah, so if that's the case, we just don't use it at all. Take, for example, pressure pipes. Garbage. I hate them. They're garbage. Even with the 2022 rollout. Have you ever tried to set the pressure pipe catalog?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I teach a full 8-hour class on it. Did a whole new one for the new 2022 one. I teach folks, not my favorite tool. I don't know if I go so far as say garbage, but not the easiest tool on the planet to use. Absolutely correct.
I mean, if I was to send a drawing with a pressure pipe the way it does pipe bends to the city of Houston, they will laugh at me so hard and put a gigantic red reject on it.
Fair enough. I can't argue that one. I can't. Because I spent a lot of time doing the calculation, getting everything set, and then kind of manually redrawing it afterward to make it look right. I have done that many times.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, I think that's absolutely a really good point, right? That two things that you said that I agree with. Number one, I think that when you got people like you who enjoy change, I will say I've just found over the years that it's usually guys like you and I, and we wind up in those higher level tech positions because we're like two people in the entire country who actually like change and look for those benefits. Everybody else sees change as, we see it as an opportunity. They see it as more work and more headaches. So that's not, it's kind of the usual response we get to that. But I think your point is really well taken, right? That you've got to test it in advance, whether it's a process or a software. And if it, doesn't work, it doesn't work. You got to know when to just cut the strings and move on. That is really important.
And another point to make too is, working with your coworkers, how they're going to take this, in advance because you've been working with them, how things are going to go in before it even goes, right? So you got to keep that as a factor as well. It's like, well, these guys are going to flip out and they're not going to like it, or they're not going to catch on, or they're not going to know how to use it after it's been trained 1,000 times. So, you got to know that up front as well.
Yeah, you do. And you got to weigh that into balance, right? Because for some
Sure.
folks, no matter how they may be the best at what they do, but you just know there are always some folks who are it's going to be an uphill battle convincing them to make a change. So you have to, bring that in and say, is it worth the fight? Is this the hill I want to die on today? So, so I know that, the process change that I know that Todd's been working with recently is the shift to using shared reference points between Civil 3D and Revit. And this is technically a software extension that's available in both Civil 3D and Revit 2022. And I think before that it was another third-party download. And it comes with the idea of coordinating the architectural structures into the real-world coordinate systems for the site that's been developed in Civil 3D, right? And it in the end it makes it just a lot easier for everybody from design through final construction to tie to utilities and roadways and parking and so on, all right, into that actual building for a much more realistic and integrated design process instead of the building just kind of floating out randomly in space. So Todd, can you kind of walk our listeners through the general process, I guess, of connecting the site and the architectural designs using the shared reference point tools?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing quite a bit of this, since we're doing so much BIM work lately, and I'm learning a lot about Revit, a lot more than I wanted to. Uh, so basically, what I've learned here recently is, we were trying to take points like, for example, a right-of-way line, something that won't ever move, right? So
Yep.
surveyor goes out there and he picks up the iron rods for the right-of-way, and you've got a established right-of-way or a property corner that will never move. Well, that's all fine and great. Architect still has to get it in the right place into his drawing before you can do all this. So what I've found is if we take an existing building that's on a site that we're working on, and we take the building corners of that existing building, which is never going to move, it makes it so much easier. So once you establish this X, Y, and Z, Z is important because it's finished floor, right?
Yep.
So once you establish those, it basically spits out an XML file. That XML file in Revit is opened. They set the location to shared reference point and set their project to Project North, right? So this orients and moves everything into a real world coordinate, so to speak, because, Revit doesn't have a coordinate system. But it moves it to where whenever something's imported or exported, it always drops into the correct location, via Revit versus Civil 3D. So there's a couple of extra little things you got to do in there. Like, for example, when you export out of Revit, you must make sure you hit that units tab and change it to feet and shared coordinates. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've found recently, too, is it doesn't work at all if you do not have a coordinate system set in your Civil 3D drawing. If there's no coordinate system set, you're still going to have issues with it, even though you set the right settings in Revit. It's insane. Took me forever to figure that out. And I'm teaching more architects how to do this in Revit than I've ever imagined. It's insane. It's like, we've never used this before. We've always done it this way. And I'm like, well, this is so much easier. I promise you.
Yeah.
And
Once you have it locked in, yeah.
effort to click and go, oh yeah, it is easier. But
I like the voice you give to the architects. Let's just annoy all of our architectural listeners.
yeah,
I have
get
to
a
say,
lot of help.
yeah. That's too funny. So, no, I agree, right? And it's a process, right? And like I said earlier, while there is a software component here and there are steps that have to go there, right? There are, like Todd was saying, there's a process. There's some procedural changes that need to take place. It's not just a new tool. It's about training your staff on the where to use it, when, why, how to use it, right? Of making this connection on every single project, right? They need to know how to do it, where to store it, when they should and when they should not implement it, and so on. Um, and I think there's a much greater focus, I think, on training, right, for an item like this than on a plug-in type of solution. And I think that training, like Todd was alluding to, it needs to focus more on the understanding of the process and making them realize, oh, it is better, it is faster, it does help a lot on both the architectural and the civil side, right? And it goes beyond just the basic software steps. Click here, this happens, right? You got to kind of get into the why.
Yeah, it's a little cleaner.
Yep, no doubt. So Rocco, that kind of concept, right? That's always kind of a sticking point for us on our consulting jobs, right? How do our clients react when we try to get them to focus on training for understanding the process versus just show them how to do it, click the button and make it happen? What's the responses we get there?
It depends on the audience, right? I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. I think that the CAD managers, folks who are more advanced, understand it more. Those who are more conscious of the checkbook don't necessarily understand it more. So it's all over the map. Right? I think you'd probably attest to the same, Jim, right?
Yeah, no, there are a lot of folks who just want to, like I said, they understand software. You should just be able to push the big red easy button and the job is done, right? Isn't that what software does? It's like, no. If it did, you'd have no need of engineers or architects anymore, would you? That's not the way that works. So yeah, a lot of like you said, we'll call them the bean counters. They don't always understand that there is still a design aspect that has to go in here, and people have to understand when and how to apply this stuff. So Todd, when you first rolled out the shared reference point concept into Walter P. Moore, how did you plan for that change? Was it different from what you would normally do for like just a pure software rollout?
Absolutely. I kept it a secret. It's still kind of a secret.
I'm starting to see a pattern in the way you roll things out. It's the sneak attack.
Yeah, you've got to develop this concept. So basically, when we started using this, it was just me setting this up. Now, as far as it goes now, there's really only 3 of us, me, my CAD manager, and one of my senior designers. And we're in the process, the company or the infrastructure department in my company in a whole, we're in the process of setting up BIM teams, right? So us 3 will probably be BIM manager, quote unquote, and the others BIM coordinators. So we would have one person from each team in the infrastructure department assigned as a BIM coordinator that will go through training on how to do this. And it's just going to be a few picks, here and there. People that the team leaders will pick that person, and we'll all have a good training on it and go from there. So it's not going to be a lot of people, doing this process.
Right. And I think that's an important aspect too, right? Knowing who the right people are in your organization to take on these procedural roles. Right, rather than just saying, I'm going to train everybody. I think that's a much smarter way to do it. You'll get people who will appreciate it, learn it, and apply it that way.
Right. So, that, like I said, this is way different than, Project Explorer. I would love for everybody in the whole entire company, even the Revit guys, to know how to do Project Explorer, and I wouldn't mind training them on it. But this particular thing, no.
Yeah, whole different set. Only certain folks are who you're going to bring in there. Makes sense to me. So, I have to say from my own experience, right, that one aspect of any type of a system change, rollout, upgrade, whatever you want, that gets overlooked a lot. Though I have to say, we push real hard on this to include in all of our consulting jobs here at Zentech, is the postmortem. And I'm a firm believer, right, that a rollout is not complete once it's on everybody's computer and the training's done. All right, project finished. No, it's only finished when you can show that the changes have either been successful or not. Right. And in most cases, I think the not successful is more important to find out than the positive result. And look, I get it. Nobody wants to be the person left holding the bag and be the one responsible for a project that doesn't give the ROI that we were hoping for, or even that we told our superiors we were going to get, right? So we avoid the postmortems so we don't have to have the accountability if things don't go well. But the truth here, though, is that it's far worse both for you and for your company if the implementation is a failure, and then you just continue on using that tool and that process, right? Knowing that it's going to have negative impact on your profits and your efficiency. It's bad for everybody. Todd, what type of post-mortem work do you do on your rollouts, right? How do you ensure that the changes are having a positive effect long term and not dragging things down?
Well, oh man. So basically what happens to me is Teams starts blowing up, right? So
No peace for you.
so that's where I know that the positive effect is not in effect. uh so when that starts happening, then obviously I have to stop what I'm doing and figure out why it's happening, how to fix it, and push it back out to where it's not happening anymore. So in the process now, for example, our IT department has an image, right, for new employees. So they just throw this image on a computer and they're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm having all these new employees coming to me that I've never even heard their names before going, hey, I don't have 2022. Where is it? So I have to get with IT, get a time to set up with IT so they can give me access to this image so I can go in, uninstall 2020 from the image, install 2022, put all of our settings, all of our little add-ins, do all the tweaking and all that stuff. So yeah, it's it rears its head for sure. It's not like I push something out and then I just hear from other people, hey, this is not working well. No, they bang me to death on Teams.
Yep. You will find out. You'll hear about it. And that's what just makes me laugh. In my previous life, I used to do exactly what you do, and I used to spend so much time with the IT guys because those ghost images have to be set for like every particular type of hard drive and system.
Yeah.
So I would be installing new images on it. Oh, we got a new version of the Dell laptops for these 8 people, but we need a new ghost, so you have to reinstall all the software on this new image. I would do that every 2 weeks or so. It was crazy.
Brutal.
So look, I've said it before on the show, folks, and I'll say it again. Rollouts of any kind are not a simple case of install it and move on. To make any major software or process change, you have to have a good plan, right? All the way from the inception, the original idea, all the way through that post-mortem. All right, and a plan that hopefully has some quantifiable metrics that you can use to test the results. I mean, and it may be just as quantifiable as my Teams is blowing up every day, right? Like Todd said, it can be that works. Wow, a lot more Teams complaints, definitely something wrong here. And look, and I also can't stress enough that, having a talented advocate like Todd on staff that can lead the charge and bring in, trainers or consultants as needed, or at the very least, train them themselves and verify the results of your implementation. Having that lead advocate is just priceless. So you all got to look for that person in your organization who likes change, who is, an advocate for growing and moving and doing things better. They're hard to find, but you got to look for them. So Todd, one last question for you today, right? Is just in general, is there anything else you want to kind of add into this conversation on, effective rolling out things into the real world?
Yes. 2 words really. Test it. Test it over and over and over till you're comfortable with the test.
Absolutely true. And my add into that will be test it not just on your own system, go to other systems.
Right.
Is one of the things you learned early on.
That's what I was getting at when I'm saying test it.
Yeah.
Test. for real test it.
Yeah. Log in as an admin, log in as a minor user, log in as an admin, do it on different computers at different times of the day, do it from home. You can't possibly test enough, right? Test it. Most important words that have ever been spoken on the show. Test it. All righty, folks. So first of all, Todd, I just want to thank you one more time for being here again. And honestly, folks, I think Todd is silly enough to even come back again in the future and keep talking to us more.
I am a psychotic.
This psychotic. That's why we get along, sir. You fit right into the family. All right, folks. We'll get out of here. All right, and we will catch you all next time on the Cattle Call Podcast.
All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.